like we've got most of the attendees here. Thank you very much. And I'll just get my mouse into position here, and we'll get started. So this product line, oh, by the way, can everyone see my screen? Just want to be sure. Anyway, so anyway, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Adam. This product line is going to consist of 4 models. Anyway, sorry, 4, 8, and 16 channel unit, the 2 16-channel units, the one with looping. They all, on their live screen output, support 4K monitors. All right, so you can actually see what you're recording. And the 4-channel unit, the 8-channel unit, and the 16-channel unit also supports 30 frames a second at 2 megapixel, 10 frames a second at 5, and 4K at 7 frames a second. So just keep that in mind. They also, of course, have AC power supplied by 12 volts. These are advanced H.264 recording. I believe we will actually be releasing H.265 version. Records up to 8. The 16-channel unit records up to 8 4K analog cameras, and it has new functionality called real-time temperature alert. If it's installed in a bad area, you can actually have it trigger an alarm output if the unit itself is getting too hot. So it's an extra feature in there. It's the same easy setup as our other A1 products. So if you're familiar with our A1, A1 Plus 4K will be very familiar to you as far as the setup. So your main setup screen, as you get to it, of course, you can go in and see this. You can also has the same system status. It'll tell you the system's connected to the internet, how many users are connected, gateway information, which cameras are connected and which are not. So again, just some good information from the status monitoring. And also this can be seen locally, so at the machine, but also remotely. You can log in with the web browser and see this connection information and other performance information. So we're going to go to a little bit of setup video. Very similar information panel. You can again see the system status here. You can also look at the performance monitor, see how much CPU, memory, or record power is being used up. You can also go to users, add a user, is the same setup as before. You go in, create a username, and you can give them the different capabilities, whether you want them to be able to shut down, export data, playback, do access certain menus, like we can create a user and just, give them no menu access. Maybe camera one's looking at them, so you won't give them access to it. And you can go in and add, remove, and delete users right from that screen. We're going to go to the next. There we go. The next, delete a user. You can also have last screen mode and show live after log off. So you can actually have the screen goes blank if you want. Now, I'm going to pause this because, sorry guys, all these units ship with the systems looking at this 1024 by 768. So if you plug them into an old monitor, they'll work. Okay, so if you have an old, 15-inch HP monitor, 17-inch HP monitor, 4:3 aspect ratio, it'll work. It's not trying to put out a signal that monitor won't understand. Okay, but you want to change it to the native resolution of the monitor you're working at, either 1080p, 4K, or some of these resolutions are like the oddball laptop monitors. That's what the 2560 by 1440 give you. So you can be close to the native monitor, the native picture of the monitor, which will make everything look better if you're at the native pixels of the monitor. So here you can see hard drive health. You have to be a administrator to be in here, but you can look at saying, are there bad blocks? How long has the drive been running? Do you want to, at real-time temperature alert, where do you want that to fall at? What's the drive's capacity? So you can get and look at the health of the recorder and the drive, which is one of the most important parts of the recorder, obviously, because it's where you're recording your data. You can format the drive here. Now also, you got settings. So in here, you can actually register the product with us directly here. So you can register yourself as an installer or as the end user. All right, and that'll help, help us track warranty and stuff like that for you guys. So now also though, you can rerun the startup wizard. Okay, so built in here, if you guys have seen my other webinars, the system has a wizard. You can just go through and it sets IP address, camera names, a bunch of other stuff, and you can restart that Here, didn't want to take you all the way through that, but we have a very neat startup wizard. You can also export when the system's all set up. You can also export those settings and import them into another machine or save them as a backup file. I live in Florida. We have a little more lightning than other places, and so we see more units come in from especially Western Florida that have been hit by lightning. And it's nice if someone has to go replace it, they have that backup file and they can go in and restore the system because the system got damaged. So this is the part of the setup wizard. And of course, we're gonna go look at that. You can factory default the system also from here. You just want to leave the network settings intact, but you made a whole bunch of changes. You can go in and manage those from there. So here's where you go into the device, and now you can look at the camera settings themselves. So you see I've got a 4K camera plugged in here. I can change the name of it. I can make it covert. We'll show you adjustments in a minute. But the 4K camera, it says this is the 4-channel unit. Input is only possible on channel 1 and 2. Okay, so keep that in mind. About half of each recorder, you can do 4K recording. So we can go in and change the camera name. Got this one overlooking an emergency exit. You can adjust for brightness, contrast, color, hue, sharpness. So you can tweak the camera for your different situations. There's also privacy settings. So you can set up privacy masking. You can assign audio, including two-way audio. So if you have a device that allows you to do two-way audio, you can do it. Here's where you can go in and control the camera. So you can go into programming. It brings up the PTZ control, and you can go into the menus of the camera, which I'll show you in a few. You'll see how that works in a few right here. There's also a keyboard setting in here, so you can actually use our KB100 keyboard, where you can go in and do PTZ control, bring up different cameras on the screen, and we have it built right in there. There's also supports other ones also. So you also have your alarm input triggers. The system has alarm input triggers. So you can say input 1 can trigger relay out or trigger a preset on a camera. You can also set your pre-alarm for that particular setup. You set up your motion alarm. So on motion, do you want a relay to trigger? Do you want pre-alarm? And this is where you set your motion area. This is set for everything is motion on it. And you could also have motion do a camera pop-up, notify, buzzard. And then here's your extra alarms. So on smart, you know, the assumption is you'd have a trouble point, maybe on an alarm panel somewhere. Maybe it's just a light or something like that. And so if there's a smart trigger is telling you there's a problem with the hard drive's overheating, there's a bad block or something like that, and it'll trigger. You could have a trigger relay out or just notify you, do a pop-up on the screen or a buzzer. Same with video loss, same with record failure. That might be different. The hard drive might be going here, the hard drive might have failed, and so you're going to get a buzzer here. And then, of course, power failure, you turn this on, and of course, it would trigger a relay out to something. And then the RTC real-time temperature would give you an alert if you went beyond a certain temperature threshold inside the unit itself versus the smart from the hard drive giving you an alert. So a lot of extra functionality that you can do to monitor these machines and make sure they're always functioning at their highest level, 100% all the time. So now we can go into camera settings, and I'm going to pause it here because, again, I've got my 4K camera, 7 frames a second. On these systems, you do want to go in and look at the factory settings because these are universal recorders, so you can plug in 2 megapixel cameras, old analog cameras, things like that. And so you want to make sure you have the quality set appropriate for the camera. So this one, you'd want to max out the quality at 3 or 4 megabits per second. Okay, on a 5 megapixel cameras, 2 or 3 megabits per second. If you're using a 1080p camera, you want to drop that down to maybe 1 to 2 megabits per second. And of course, if you're plugging in an old analog camera, which this will support also, you'll want to be down around this 512K, whatever setting. So you do want to make sure you set, of course, your frame rate and your quality setting because that will determine how much hard drive space you use up. You don't want to take a old analog camera and set it for the same quality settings as a 4K camera because you get nothing out of it. You don't get a single better view. The camera doesn't look the playback doesn't look any better. You don't get anything out of it. All it does is eat up extra hard drive space. So that's just a tip from me on going in and setting these up, you don't want to leave these things at max. So we're going to go through, we're going to change the quality setting to at least 3 for a 4 megapixel camera, from a 4K camera. May want to push it to 4. Does the camera have audio? Do you have an audio device on it? And then of course we got a second stream, which the second stream you can set for 1 CIF to 4 CIF resolution, what frames per second you want, and of course what quality you want. I like recommending continuous plus recording, which we'll talk about in a second on the record center, but I don't think it needs to be that higher resolution, because if there's no activity, why spend a lot of hard drive space looking at empty carpets and empty parking lots and all the other stuff? So I suggest even bring it down as low as 256K for the record quality. And usually I say the frames per second should be about, shouldn't be very much. Our system will actually, when you do record schedule, you can actually set it so it'll do 1 frame a second on continuous plus motion on the recorder. So we're going to go over now to record schedule, and you can see got our different color codes. So you can have different recordings at different times during the day. So I can, on Sunday, set it maybe for motion record only. On Saturdays and Sundays, we're not open. And if I have a holiday set up, I can do a holiday here. But you see, record 1 frame a second on continuous plus motion mode. Okay, so you choose everything all blue, continuous plus motion. It'll only do 1 frame a second. Now, if you uncheck it, it'll take your second stream, whatever you have that for. Let's say you have it set for 3 or 5 frames a second. You can go in there and, you know, it'll then take that from there. So the whole idea, though, is to save hard drive space. And again, we're recording an empty parking lot or carpeting or whatever. So I don't know if you need the high frame rate or not. So we'll let this go. Say I'm changing to continuous plus motion. I'm changing it to that color. So when you're playing back and you're playing back in these different modes, these colors will appear on the timeline and you'll even see them remotely. So your continuous plus motion mode, or if you're motion record, you'll be like green lines. If it's motion plus sensor, you'll see red lines. Just sensor input, you'll see orange, and so on. And this one is motion plus sensor, so you could have a motion detector out there that's a little more sensitive. You want to just view those. And the motion recording, you know, you're gonna, you know, a tree's gonna move every now and then. It's gonna move. Someone's gonna leave a light on. There's gonna be balloons in the room or something like that, setting it off. So, you know, that kind of a thing is your setting here. And as we're getting up to these higher and higher resolutions, we are using more and more hard drive space. So, all right, we'll keep it going, And then quick setup. This is great if you're doing, like it says, like just a quick, I just want to get this thing done and recording. But it does, once you set it up, turn off your ability to mess around with the streams. Okay, so the main stream and the second stream, because it's setting everything here. I prefer to do the settings myself per camera. Takes a little longer, but the quick setup, you know, you might have a camera where you really needed to look at either its frame rate or quality settings a little closer, and you know, you should have, you know, done it manually versus this sort of semi-automatic setting. This just allows you to go in, you know, really quick setup, set everything for 10 frames a second, whatever you want to do. So in the network settings, you can go in here, of course, and set your DHCP or static. From the factory, we're 9010, so you can change these though to whatever you want, as long as you know how to use your, you know, open up ports or whatever you're using, or if you're using our Pathfinder functionality, you can make it static. We can also have our bandwidth limiting. So this is really good if you're in a situation where they have limited bandwidth. They might only have 10 megabits up, okay? And they're doing credit card transactions, they're doing other stuff in there, they got counting. So you can set this so it'll only do 5 megabits. So at least someone logs in, it's only gonna hog half their network, because video is very intense, data intensive. Someone could log in and then all of a sudden you're using up all their bandwidth, their credit card machines are running slow, or you know, they can't verify transactions, or their accounting thing is slowing down for whoever's in the accounting office. So good idea to make sure you know their upload speed. Okay, download speed, not as big a deal. It's the upload speed that's key. So, you know, a lot of times, especially I think it's the cable companies, more than the guys that give out the fiber optic lines, cable companies will give you this fantastic number, 200 megabits, 500 megabits, 600 megabits, gigabit down, but then you'll find out they only have 10, 20, 30, 50 megabits up, okay? So you just got to keep that in mind and look at the upload speed when you're doing this, because someone could have, you know, multiple recorders, whole bunch of cameras, want to see 10 or 15 of those cameras at one time. All of a sudden, you're eating up a lot of their bandwidth they're using for other items on the network. So we'll let this go through. So you can just change it to whatever bandwidth you want. 50 kbs, so it's like a modem speed. There's also, we'll go in and you can change UPnP port forwarding. System introduces itself to the monitor. To the router. Introduces itself to the router, and if the router accepts the invitation, so to speak, it'll open the port for the recorder. Also built in. Oh, come on, click the mouse, Paul. There we go. We'll just go to the next slide. There we go. Also built into this is DDNS, and the DDNS settings allows you to go in and not have to have a fixed external IP. Click use DDNS, you give it a host name, customer's last name, street name, address, whatever they deem the thing. You click check, it'll tell you, as long as the machine's on the internet, it'll tell you it's got a, you know, it's available, and then you can save it, and then you can log into that machine. So if this was, we call this one 4K1 or whatever it is, 4K1.mydwddns.net, you know, or, you know, Paul's recorder. If you already got one on there, you can unregister it, and you know, you want to move that to another machine. Now also we have, oh, we'll go back to this real quick. Go to the next slide, easier. So also we have our notification functionality. So our notification functionality, if they're using the C3 software, it'll push notifications to it. But most people want to use email notification. That's what you set up here. And you add someone's email address here and tell them what they can do, just like a user. They can see pop-up alarms, whatever. And then, of course, you set them whatever mail server they have down here. Now, mobile push will be using our Pathfinder, but you're going to see our mobile app morph into something else. I got a little bit of information at the end, and so you'll actually be able to push notifications to it, similar to like a Ring doorbell on it. And this will push sensor alarms, motion alarms. I wouldn't do motion, okay, only because, you know, you have a number, you can have a number of cameras set up where there's trees and stuff like that. Just you'll get some alerts. But over here we've got smart, so if something's going on with the drive, it will send you an alert on problem with the hard drive. So maybe some of you dealers out there, you know, you're not really in the office all the time. Go in and look at your phone. The app sends you an alert for one of your customers because there's a problem. And of course, video loss. By the way, if you have any questions on this stuff, we're going to do a Q&A at the end. So here's our Pathfinder functionality. So what this is a QR code. You open our Mobile Plus app. Again, that's going to change. It's going to morph a little bit. A Mobile Plus app, you click use Pathfinder, and you point it at the unit itself. Or you point the phone at the QR code, and it will program it in. The only thing you got to program in is the username and password. It'll find the way in. That's what the Pathfinder is all about. You can also, if you have email notifications set up, you can send someone an email and then they can access it via web browser. Okay, that's this new functionality is here. Require web browser access. Request web browser access. I can talk. So that's a little bit of the networking setup. And then over here is export. So built into the unit, hidden in the setup, not really hidden, it's in the setup, is the export functionality. So you could have someone be able to do live view and playback, but they won't be able to save video unless they can get to this menu, or they have in the playback menu export setup. So you can go choose your date, time on here, add your, check your file size. If you want a password on it, you can password on it. It'll scan for a USB device, and you can go in and then copy data to USB device up to 32 gig. okay, up to 32 gig to the USB device. If you want to do more, I would use the C3 software, log in on the local network, and you can download whatever you want from the machine. So keep that in mind. I would use C3 software to be much faster anyway, rather than a USB type connection. Network connection would be, would be faster than the USB. So let's talk a little camera setup here. I'm actually going to pause it. So I've gone and launched the PTZ control, and you can go in and use preset 95, or you can go into that menu and set up. And so this is one of our 4K cameras, set up again in that dark hallway with the exit. I'm going to go through some of the setup of the camera, of one of the cameras in here. So I'm going to go in first, I think, to exposure. Yeah, I'm going to go into exposure, and I'll pause it right here again. So this is actually not a final version of the camera. So, the Star-Light is grayed out, okay? So the release version of all our cameras will have the Star-Light set up on it. And I think this will be called initialization or camera focus. So you go in and actually do a one-shot focus for the camera if you want. When it powers up, it does a focus anyway. But you got your shutter speed, your backlight compensation. So we're going to talk about different items in there, gain, and of course, 3D DNR. So in shutter, we can go shutter mode, which is deblur, which sounds like a French word. What it does is it raises the shutter speed, so objects that are going fast by do not appear blurry. And it also changes the gain and stuff like that. And this hallway really doesn't matter all that much. People will be walking. And then, of course, we've got the backlight compensations menu and brightness. So brightness, you can see I'm turning down the brightness, making it look a little darker in that hallway than it really is. And then getting up to about even. And then backlight compensation. So this is one functionality here. I'm going to see if I can just roll it back, which is HME, which is our highlight masking exposure, which you can use normally in parking lots, but it takes the brightest points and blocks them out. So if someone's coming at you with headlights, it'll block the headlights and still allow you to see the other details of the car. Also, if you have that parking lot with that just annoying spotlight pointing at right at the camera from someone else's parking lot, you can use it for that to compensate for that. So this way the camera blocks that out and does make some adjustments so you can still see the view, so the camera's not forcing the camera to the scene to look too dark. And then backlight compensation, and then that's it flipping over to wide dynamic range, okay, which we're going to talk about in a second. And so I still got the menu up here. We're going to let this roll. Come on. There we go. So someone's going to walk out the door here. And with WDR on, oops, sorry guys, all the way back over here, pause. You can see, we can see outside, see the person. Look outside, clearly see their face, their glorious head of white hair, okay? And then I have it flip back and stop. So then we're going to go and look at WDR off, okay? Because sometimes I get questions about how it works. So this is the same camera, same setup, a couple minutes later, WDR off. And so I want you to look, first off, having trouble compensating for the bright light out there. It's actually not doing that bad a job considering the WDR is off. You can still see that there's a door over there. But you can see I'm getting, not me, that's whoever that is, getting blocked. Okay, hard to see my face. Come here, you. Oh. Sorry, guys, we went. Jump forward one, there we go. Here I am. So in the hallway, really doesn't matter. Compensates well. WDR on and off, but when that door opens, and the WDR works well. So the point I'm trying to make is this is a good situation for WDR, but if you have the camera outside, I wouldn't have the WDR on. I would have the WDR off. Camera will actually perform a little better because it's not trying to do that extra functionality of trying to find the darkest spot and the brightest spot when pretty much the light's all even if the camera's outside. There are situations outside where you still want it on, but just keep that in mind. You can also control the white balance in here and your color gain. So your color gain would be how much color is in the scene, probably very similar to saturation. You can make these adjustments at the recorder, but sometimes it's better to do it at the camera. I'll let this play. So you can increase or decrease the color gain. Makes the excess sound a little less intense. Come here, you. There we go. And then, of course, we got our day-night mode. So day-night, we can go in, turn on and off our IRs, activate Smart IR, or change the mode from day to night, night to day in here. So that's color-only mode. They would never change. That's black and white only mode. You can turn the LEDs on or off if you want, or crank up the Smart IR. So again, just some of the features in the camera, and I just because this has the ability to do this and do this via the PTZ control, you can do this in the web browser. So you don't have to be at the site. Customers telling you, hey, it's a little too dark or a little too bright or just something's going on. You know, you can go in and change it remotely. You don't have to drive to the site late at night and try to, you know, figure out exactly what the customer wants. So here's your function menu. So your function menu shows you your sharpness, okay? Gamma, which is the amount of light in the screen. And then, of course, I had my camera upside down, so I have to mirror and flip it. And then DRC, which is dynamic range control, which actually tries to compensate for the brightest and the darkest points of the camera. So again, I think we'll scroll down here and actually see me do it. And then, of course, again, the defog mode, again, really meant for when the camera's outside. Okay, when you activate the defog mode, all it does is trying to compensate for if there's mist or fog, if this image is too contrasty, it tries to compensate for that contrasty image. Come here, you. There we go. You also have motion built into the camera. Now, I would say you want to use this if you wanted text burned into the screen, like you can have a text alarm saying, you know, person in, you know, unauthorized area, and you had some sort of company policy saying, you know, it can't be generated by your recorder. The text, you know, the overlay for the time and all that stuff had to be generated at the camera. And that's the reason why you do it here. The motion detection in the, you know, in the recorder itself is very good. I would just use this for the text overlay type thing. And then output, so this is really the final menu on the camera. And this just allows you to change its communication settings, language. Do you want a title on the camera? Do you want to say it's, again, burned into the camera, front door, side door, whatever? If you made a mistake, too many settings, the camera's got a weird purple hue or something like that, you go in there and click reset to make those changes for the camera. Now, we also have a zoom control in here, so you can see it's doing zoom tracking. So I'm just moving the mouse wheel back and forth. And then, of course, the zoom will kick in. Or I can use my focus and zoom here, as well as operate the iris from there. So the software that links these up is, number one, is our C3 CMS. Okay, allows you to do multi-DVRs, dual monitors, remotely configure the software, super fast video backup. It also supports our IP Plus product. All right, so you can have a hybrid system using an IP Plus recorder and a A1 Plus recorder and have a hybrid setup. They have some IP cameras. You're doing a retrofit. And again, our recorders are great for doing retrofits because of the fact you can plug in the older analog cameras into them and then get them a new high resolution camera into the system. Remote log connection. The C3 has an event server built into it, which is another exciting feature of it. You can go in and set up a view of all your recorders. So if you have an end user that has 10 sites or 20 sites, they could have those sites up on a monitor, up on a screen. Is a site disconnected? Is the ISP down? Something happened there, their power's out, whatever. Have any units had video loss? You can go look at some video loss, if any units rebooted. You can get a lot of information, have it displayed in this dashboard. Take this thing, put it up on a monitor on the wall, and monitor them. The apps for this, smartphone apps, we're going to use our DW Mobile Plus app. Allows you to access your surveillance, again, right from the little phone. QR code set up on the VMAX A1 Plus, A1 Plus 4K, and the IP Plus. So, you go in, you click site. You can also do it. There's a weather widget built into it, so you know your weather. Take the QR code, give it a site name, choose your port. Usually your port, if you choose the right one, it does it for you, 9010. If you've made it, custom, you can go in and change it to a custom port. And then, of course, we got MO no password, super high security. And you can view multi-cameras live. You can view a single camera. You can do playback. Just does a lot of stuff. See, it goes over. You go to your calendar, go to playback. Does a lot of different things on it. It's got a PTZ control, PTZ camera. You can hear the audio, and you can trigger relay outs from the camera. So again, you may want to turn on a light with a relay. Very simple. Multi-camera view for live view and playback. And what's nice about this is it's also have the tutorial built into it. But what's going to happen in the near future is this is going to morph. Its name is going to change to MyDW. We're going to add some other features to it. So keep an eye out for that. We'll be doing a webinar on the iOS and Android applications and how they're different and what else is tied to MyDW. So accessories. You can have a wall mount bracket available shortly. So you'll be able to mount the thing on the wall without a case or in its own case. Rack mount ears are available. And of course, the video balins. And you got to be careful with video balins. I'm not saying you have to buy ours, but our video balins truly support 4K. They support 5 megapixel, and they support 2.1 and even 720p, an analog camera. So we've done a little research. If you just grab some because they had video balins or they hand you some from another manufacturer, they may only support 2.1 megapixel, and you've got 5 megapixel cameras, and so all of a sudden things start acting really strange. Okay, so you can still do an extra long length at 5 megapixel and 4K. You can go 600 feet or 590 feet. So you can go pretty far with 2.1. You can go 660 feet. HD analog. So it's really nice to be able to use the Cat5 cable on that. Don't forget to sign up for our DW University. We're adding C3 training and other training to it, along with getting certified for our Digital Watchdog Spectrum product. A lot of information going around about NDAA, TAA. Just a reminder, on our support page, you can go in and look at the latest products that are supported under NDAA. We have majority of our products are supported on the NDAA, which of course it basically means there are certain products made by certain manufacturers that can't be used with federal money. And if you are using them, you may not be able to bid on or let you in on federal contracts. So good idea to go in and, familiarize yourself which products are NDAA compliant. And of course, webinars. So we're going to have more webinars for September. We'll release that schedule very shortly. And you can find it on our webinar section of our website. And now I'm going to open up for some Q&A. So Q&A, see if someone's got some questions. I'm going to bring up my question screen. Got a couple in here already. Let's see. So someone's asking, Adam, if you're using half the channels are using 4K on the 4, 8, and 16, what is the limitation of the other channels? So at 5